Hey, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about what the biggest difference is between an agency and just hiring an ads person or an SEO person or just hiring a person to do stuff for your marketing. So we're back. I'm Haley Gray, and this is my dear friend, Marshall Evans. And we're going to be talking about digital marketing today. And we're going to be dishing on some things that we see in the world around us, digital marketing world, and a lot of the biggest problems that we have to overcome when it comes to marketing. And Marshall, welcome. So happy to have you here.
It's good to be here.
Yeah, this is fun. And is the owner of another digital marketing agency near me. He lives, you're in Raleigh, right?
Yep.
And so we thought we would start doing some of these interviews, and y'all can ask us questions and we'll pop them up on the screen and answer your questions if you like. I also am joined right now with my grand fur baby. This is Lilo. You'll see her little eyes and ears looking up over the edge of the screen here. And Marshall, tell me a little bit about what you do with your work and who you work with.
Well, I do a lot of the same things that you do. I like to say that I feel like I play whack-a-mole, but my job is to really direct the marketing that works best for the client. So that may be a lot of different things, but it really depends upon the business. But I actually take the time to get to know that. I don't just dive in and start doing things. So I may do ads, I may work on your website, I may work on your social media strategy or your email marketing strategy. And sometimes I have to start at the very beginning and work on your brand. But it's really just making sure that you're in a good place with all of the boxes checked, that so anything we do is going to actually have an impact and you're not wasting your time and your money, and making sure that we have a cohesive plan that is reaching the people you want to reach with the message that they want.
Right. And, you know, one of the interesting things that we talk about, like with message, is that it's not necessarily always, you know, the message that and the story that I want to tell, but we have to tell it in a way that the customer wants to hear it.
Definitely.
And that can be quite a challenge, you know, and we have to tell a story and get it. And, you know, one of the things I do, in case y'all don't know, is I also own a digital marketing agency, and we do all the same things pretty much that Marshall does. And, you know, it is a never ending game of whack-a-mole. You know, what is Google going to break today? I never really know what I'm going to run into, you know, when I get up in the morning. And I never really know, like, what's Facebook going to do today? What's the algorithm change going to look like? You know, how is it going to do with ads? Is it going to decide to take off all the guardrails on all the ads and run through a crazy ass budget today on anything that we started today, but it's not going to, you know, reimburse us, right? So it's like a never ending game of whack-a-mole. Or they're going to decide to change permissions on a page randomly. And suddenly software that was working is not working anymore. So it is not just a game of tech whack-a-mole, but it's also a game of like trying to find and fix and close gaps in a client's business, in their operations and in their marketing, and making sure that they're all together. And so today we're going to talk about like the key differences between like hiring somebody who is functioning at an agency level, at a strategist, at a CMO level, versus hiring somebody who is your ads guy. So do you want to go first on telling, you know, why you don't hire, or, you know, why you might decide to hire an ads guy or not?
Well, actually, I'll start with the thing is I'm in my niche. I get a lot of these phone calls, and the first thing they always call me the SEO guy. And I'm like, what do you mean by SEO? And a lot of them are all floating around in the same world, right? They have the same peers. And what they hear from the lady in charge of this group that a lot of them are in, or that runs a lot of the Facebook groups that are in, she always calls the ad guy the SEO guy.
Hmm.
SEO and ads are not the same thing.
Hmm.
It's all a end goal of making more money, right?
Right.
But the methods and the channels that those things operate on and the responsibilities of an SEO person are completely different than, somebody who's running Google ads.
Right.
And the biggest thing is that you have to make sure that you have a plan, like a cohesive plan starting from the beginning, and you're not just again, whacking it. You're like, okay, we're going to work on SEO right now, but somebody else is running your ads, and that person's not talking to the SEO person, or the website person's not talking to the ads person. And a lot
Hmm.
of the ad thing now is like, there's a difference between an ad that has a strategy behind it and is part of your brand message, and an ad that only has the goal of getting you a bunch of leads. And a lot of the people who are out there offering, like, social media ad services are really just technical people who know how to execute it, but I wouldn't actually call a lot of them a marketer. They're just a person who
Yeah.
has technical competence to get through everything it takes to run and launch a successful Facebook/Instagram campaign. So I think that that's a big difference. There's a huge difference between somebody who's thinking about the big picture and strategy and goals and how it fits in with your brand message, and somebody who just throws up an image and is only concerned with how many leads you get. And 1,000 leads is great, but if 992 of them are not your ideal client and they're not actually going to convert, or they're low value leads, then you actually just wasted all the money to get those leads. And
Yeah.
if they never ask you who your ideal client is, that is a red flag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing I see a lot of people do with ads is they will put a Facebook post up and then boost it and call that
Ooh,
ads.
ooh.
Yeah. Right.
Not a fan of the
Or
boost button.
I'm not a big fan of the boost button either. There's only one or two times when I would actually ever use a boost button. And even then, it's kind of with, um, you know, caution. Like if I wanted to boost a video that I did live on Facebook, I might put a few dollars behind that to reach a bigger audience if it did spectacularly well when I was live, to continue the conversation. That might be one of the only instances where I might actually boost an ad. And I tell people, back away from the boost button because you don't have everything set up that you need. And then I see a lot of things like, um, advertisers and ads people who do ads and they'll just drive ads to the front page of a website.
Ooh. Big pet peeve of mine, but you know that
I
and
know that
that
that's a
that
big
goes
pet peeve.
across the board. Any channel that you're advertising on, and I can be a little, snippy and judgy, but one of the things is I will judge another person who calls themselves a marketer based on them making the decision to just fling traffic at your homepage, or the worst I've seen is, like, people who do paid Google ads and send the traffic to your Facebook page. Um, that is really annoying. But, that is definitely, it's like one of my biggest pet peeves. Or people who are running Facebook ads and then they didn't bother to install a Facebook pixel on your website. Like, I'll have a meltdown.
Hmm.
Because again, it's not that you can get through doing the ad. You have to have all, like, my favorite things to say is I don't build a house on sand.
Right.
And I definitely don't build a mansion on sand. So it's making sure that you have a strong foundation, and I think that definitely, having a good destination for your ads, again, going back to the brand message and communicating to the client what they need to be told to convert,
Hmm.
is that part of the ad. The ad does not stop at the click. The ad goes all the way through to and to even what happens after you get a conversion. That's all still part of the ad journey.
Right. And it's part of that marketing and operations integration because, like, one of the things that I see a ton, and is people don't want to spend a lot of money because they don't have a lot of money to put into ads. I get it. But here's what ends up happening. So somebody clicks on your website and they call you. Are you tracking the calls? Are you looking and seeing what they're doing next? Do you have a way of tracking people who came in as leads and then retargeting them with both ads and with email or with text? Most people don't. And they're not willing to make that little investment to do it. And here's the thing about doing that. It's a tiny investment to 10x or 20x your ad return.
Yeah. I think what actually I see a lot of times is I get people who have previously either used an agency or they have been turbo hitting that boost button for so long and they don't feel like it's actually giving them a return on investment. So then when
Mhm.
they come to me and there's a whole plan and there's a whole lot of work, the first thing they say is, "Well, I don't want to spend a lot because I've done it in the past and it didn't work." Well, I hate to say it, but my ads are probably going to be a lot different than what somebody else was doing for you because there's a difference. So, it's a lot like the chuck in a truck, right? So, like in home services, there's a difference between a professional plumber who has all the resources, tools, and staff that they need and Chuck in a truck who has a wrench. Like, he can still install that toilet, but he might not do it with the same level of expertise and care. He's not putting on booties before he comes in your house, right?
Right.
You're lucky if he washes his hands. So
Well,
it's a
yeah.
difference on sure, the same outcome is accomplished, but the method of doing it is completely different.
Right. And, you've got to have the back end to support the front end stuff. And, like the other thing I see a lot of times is people just want to do ads. Great. I just want to do Facebook ads. Well, how do you know that Facebook is the right platform? A, and then B, how are you supporting those ads? So, what I run into a lot of times is that it's actually cheaper to hire me than it is to hire, five other people because we're actually taking that care with your organic reach. First, we're testing the website. We're making sure, like Marshall is, that you've got all the pieces end to end and that it actually works before we even start turning on ads spend. Is this thing going to work? Does it actually convert? Yes or no? And if it doesn't, well, guess what? We're going to be swapping it out and testing it and, adjusting it. And a lot of people will throw up a version of a funnel and they're done.
Ooh, yeah, I
Mm,
actually was just in a Facebook comment conversation with a guy today, and I was just a little dumbfounded. I didn't even know what to say, but he asked a question. He's like, "I have a client, and I do a done for you," meaning he does their ads, right? So he's
right.
I've got a done for you offer, and this is for a med spa, and he's like, "We have one ad." And one offer. I've been running it for 8 months. Now, he's been running the same ad and the same offer for 8 months, and there's only one ad, like one ad creative, one message. That's it. And I think that that would be a great thing for us to talk about, Haley, is why that is a bad idea.
Well, it burns out. I mean, ads have a half
Absolutely.
life.
Yeah.
Ads
Everybody
and
who
landing
has
pages all
seen
have
it
a half life.
will have seen it. Everybody who is going to react to it has already seen it, and if they are going to react to it and they're going to convert, they would have converted after 8 months. It's not, today is not the day if they haven't already. And I think that
Right.
that's it. I mean, one of the things like and Facebook has actually gotten really good at even when you put six different creatives and maybe it's all the same offer but six different creatives and six different things. Facebook's gotten really good if all of the tracking is set up and everything is in place. Facebook actually will show the ad that's going to win the best, like the one that's giving you the highest rate of conversion at the lowest cost.
Mhm.
But if you don't have the foundation laid out, then Facebook can't do its magic, and you don't know what's working and what's not. So it's super important that like I always say, my mom always used to say this a lot: if you try to get everybody, you'll get nobody.
Right.
And I think that that's the big thing there. And what does that mean? It means that you can have the same offer, but you have to just massage it or say it or present it just a little bit different for two different people. It might be the perfect thing for either one of them, but you have to say it in the way that makes them go, "Ooh, yeah, that sounds awesome. I want it." Right? And it's going to
Right.
be very different for, like, a 55-year-old is going to react to something very differently than a 32-year-old.
Right. Well, and depending on your education and background and everything else, you could have two 50-year-old women who react to, you know, the same ad completely differently.
Yeah, well, they have different. So, a big thing in my agency is we talk about hopes, dreams, and fears. So everybody has different hopes, dreams, and fears. And what part of my job is to understand that and to utilize that as part of the messaging to drive the action that we want.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, there are so many things. I mean, and here's the thing, when you start hiring an agency and a strategist who knows what they're doing, and, somebody who's acting as your CMO, their job is to act in your best interest. And you're paying us a lot of money to act in your best interest, to get it right, to figure it out and do it. So, what do you say to the person that says, well, I need results immediately?
I I say, well, that's just not what I do. I don't do. I'm not going to drive results immediately because I have a lot of work I have to do before I can even get started. But the results that I do provide you after we've laid out the foundation and all of the right things are in place is going to give you better results at a lower cost than just trying to slapdash it. There is no immediate fix
Mm-mm.
for gathering clients. And, to be honest, if you're at the point that you're almost out of business, you should have started earlier and you should have thought about it from the beginning. I hate to say that, but it's true.
Well, and then the other thing I hear, and I'll be honest, is if somebody tells me they're putting this on a credit card because they don't have another way to pay for it, that's also a hard pass.
Yeah, I can't help you if you're at the point that you might not eat tomorrow if we don't
Yeah,
suddenly make, I don't deliver Hail Marys.
and it's not that we aren't good at what we do. It's not that I didn't get 21 million views on my Facebook page organically in the last 3 months. But you're not guaranteed instantaneous results, and I've been working on that for a hell of a long time. So you have to understand that, like, marketing is kind of like fine wine. It gets better with age. Having a trusted marketer who actually knows what they're doing and is doing the work and is doing the work in-house, because Marshall and I both do our work in-house, you get a very different result.
Yeah, and that's a big caution. I'm glad you said that in-house, Haley. So our
In-house.
nemesis, Haley and I both have the same nemesis, the 4-hour work week guy.
Mm-hmm.
We don't like this person. You shouldn't like this person either. They're usually a really flashy salesperson. They
They're
have all
excellent
the
at sales.
outward signs of success. They drive a really nice car. They wear really nice outfits. They show you pictures of them having fancy dinners and they're always at conferences and stuff like that. If you're doing all of that, you don't have any time to do any work. So who's doing it? If they're not telling you about their staff of 20 in their office and showing you pictures of their friend, like their employees, they are outsourcing everything that they do to someone overseas, and they don't give that person usually much direction. They just go and hire someone and say, "I need you to go run a Facebook ad for these people. Here's the logins, get it done." And then they don't check on it. They don't talk to that person again because it got done.
Mm-hmm.
You
Check,
know?
done. On to the next one.
Yeah, and then they're moving on
And
to sell to somebody else, and they're usually pretty expensive too.
And they're um, somebody on Fiverr.
Yeah, that's
And I'm
actually how
not
we
dissing
met.
anybody on Fiverr, huh?
Oh, really? I said that's how we met.
That's how we met, right? But you know, we we've known each other for a long time, but you know, we do. It's not that I would never hire somebody on Fiverr. I will say honestly, last week I asked Marshall if he had a resource for a hand tracing a PNG file and converting it to an AI that could do it quick and cheap. And he gave me the perfect resource for hand tracing a PNG file to turning it into an AI file. Perfect. It worked great for the client. And, you know, I paid $8 and tipped him 5. But, you know, I would say that when you start getting into things that are more complex, you know, you need to be careful and you need to ask questions and you need to be fully aware of what it is exactly that you're hiring and who it is exactly that you're hiring.
Yeah, I think another thing that's always a big problem for me, and like, you think about this, is I don't like it if someone never asks you for access to anything you have. Like they don't ask you for access to your Meta Business Manager. They don't ask you for access to your Google Analytics. They don't ask you for access to your website. They don't ask you for access to anything. And they're still running ads for you, and they're doing it in sort of a black box method, right?
Oh,
Their results are
huge red
coming in,
flags.
but you don't know how the cheese is being made. That is a huge red flag. That bothers me to no end, and it's
Let's
also
talk
not
about
good
why
for you
it's a
long term.
problem.
Yeah,
Let's talk
well, it's
about why this is a huge problem. So,
a huge
so
problem.
say you hire somebody, and I did this a few years ago, and I'm going to call them out. I hired YP.com back when I owned my home care agency. And you can see where this is going. I had my own website and I had done some of the stuff, but I wasn't doing as much marketing. I was doing more business operations consulting at the time on the side, and I was running a home care agency. Um, and my background is actually software. Um, but I hired them, and what they did was they built their own set of landing pages for me. I see you rolling your eyes and they're rolling back in your head. Exactly. So they built this own set of landing pages for my home care agency, and then they ran ads to it. And I had no way of requesting updates. I had no way of making sure that it was the brand. I had no way of controlling anything. And I was paying through the nose for every single lead I got. And here's the thing, when I cut off my ads to them, guess what? There is this set of landing pages floating around on the internet representing my business that I have absolutely no control and no access over.
Yeah, well, that is exactly what happens. That actually happened to my cousin. The exact same story. They bought a new domain name, they built a new website, and why do you
Mhm.
not want another website to suddenly appear on the internet that is looks
Perfect.
like your brand? Is because that person suddenly there are two websites with your brand competing for your SEO, your position
On
in
your
Google.
traffic.
There's someone competing. You're competing against yourself, right?
Mhm.
And this website that they got access to, like it didn't have the right phone number. It didn't have the right service area. It said that he did things he did not do. He owns an HVAC company, and they said that he was doing things that he totally does not do. Like he's not installing window air conditioning units. They had a whole page about that.
Mm.
And then I was like, bro, they're not doing you any services here, and you haven't got one single lead. And in 6 months, I was like, it's time to cut it loose. And even then, that website hung out on the internet for another 2 or 3 years. We actually had to get a lawyer involved to get them to take it down.
Right. And then the other thing that happens a lot of times is that they create an auxiliary Google My Business, and they create a separate Google Analytics. They create a separate Google ad account. So suddenly all of these things are being created for your business. And I can't tell you like how many times I see a Facebook page created by an ad agency that the owner of the business never had access to. And you want to talk about pain in the butt to deal with and clean up and do long term. And I mean, and these are things that marketers do all the time because you just hired somebody, you didn't ask enough questions, and you trusted them to do the right thing. And this is why you need to know who you're hiring. Ask
Yeah.
them.
I mean, that's the first thing that everybody gets with me is a checkup, sort of a checklist of that I have, and I go through that checklist, and sort of a digital health checkup, and everybody gets that, and like I have, and Haley's right. If gosh, if Sony makes another page for you outside of your control, it's not like you can just call Facebook and say, "I didn't make that page. I don't know who that is." And Facebook will go, "Can you contact the person who did it?" And if you're like, "I don't know who did it," and they'll go, "Well, you're
So
gonna have to
sorry.
figure that out." They won't take it down. They
Mm-mm.
won't. And I'm still fighting that to this day. It's been almost a year. I have a client whose domain was claimed in somebody else's business manager, and magically your domain can only be claimed one time in one business manager and never be claimed again. If that business until that business manager gets deleted. So, you have to do it yourself. You need to own it. And I think that that's really important. Quick note. Also, if you can't answer this question right away, then you're probably in bad shape. Where's your website hosted?
Mm-hmm.
Or where did you buy your domain name?
Yeah.
If you
And
can't
can you
answer
get
that
in?
question, we got problems. You should always own your domain name. That's one of the worst things that happened. I'll tell you, a local Raleigh company, when I first started doing marketing way back in 2014, that happened to them. They didn't own their domain name. The guy who hosted their website owned their domain name, and he was charging them a lot of money for a not very good website. And I told them, and then they said, "Well, we'll get rid of him." And he said, "Oh, you can have your domain name for $50,000." And they, of course, said no. But there's nothing you can do. Like
No.
that's like owning a domain name is like owning a piece of physical property. Like
Yeah.
even if you are living on it, if you don't own the land you're living on, then you don't really own anything at all.
Yeah. Things you need to own as a business owner: your Google My Business, your domain name, your Facebook, your Instagram, all your social media accounts. You need to own those.
Not in you yourself, not a manager, not someone who works for you.
Mm-mm.
You personally, you need to own it yourself.
Yeah.
You may be like, "Well, I love Becky. She's never gonna do anything wrong for me." Well, you don't know that, and
Well, and you don't know
Becky,
that Becky isn't going to fall over dead.
yeah, and or Becky's gonna get hacked, and they're gonna just take everything away from you. So yes, you should own those things. That people don't think that they're as important in an operation standpoint, and I think that that's something that Haley and I both encounter all the time. People don't realize how important your digital assets are. Like those operational things are extremely important because if you build your entire business is based on like a huge Instagram following and tons of traffic and referrals that you're getting from Instagram, but you don't own your Instagram, do you really even own your business? I mean, think
Well,
about it.
and are you relying on a single social media platform? But I
Um,
digress.
yeah,
We're going
that's
to talk
another
about that
topic
one
for
in a
another
whole
day.
other video. And we're going to talk about why. And we're going to tell you another day about my client and a former client of Marshall's who lost access to their Facebook account and their Facebook group and tens of thousands of dollars a year in income and had to completely rebuild on LinkedIn. And let that be a warning.
Yeah,
Um,
from the ground up.
from the ground up. So, how would somebody get in touch with you, Marshall? Because we're going to do a few of these and we're going to have fun with it.
Sure. You can always find me at zenmediasocial.com, or you can always go to Facebook. It's facebook.com/marketingmarshall.
Awesome. Thank you guys. I hope you have an awesome day. Thank you for joining us today. Give us a hi, give us a hello, leave us some comments, and we'll chat later. Thanks.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, y'all.